A Girl in the Boot. From the Return of the Saint Annual, 1979. The Saint, Simon Templar, was driving along a winding road whistling carelessly. He loved driving fast cars, but better still he loved to watch the professionals handle their machines round tight bends in all sorts of weather. Also, motor racing seemed to attract the most beautiful women spectators, and where there were beautiful women, there was the Saint. He had been speeding along behind a Mercedes, quite content to follow at a mere 90 miles per hour. Suddenly the road dipped and narrowed. They had come to a little parade of small shops. The Mercedes slowed down and stopped. The Saint knew he couldn't get past the Mercedes because it hadn't pulled in far enough to the curb and was blocking the road, so he stopped some yards back. The driver of the Mercedes jumped out and ran into one of the shops, leaving the engine running. No sooner had the man disappeared into the shop than a sharp-faced youth, who had been lounging against a building, jumped into the Mercedes, pulled the door to, and put his foot on the accelerator. With a roar of its engine, the Mercedes swung away. The driver ran out of the shop, shouting at the retreating car. The Saint's car purred up to the angry man. "Get in," he ordered. "Let's see if we can catch him." The driver looked at the Saint and saw a keen tanned face and very clear blue eyes that danced with mischief. "Naughty, naughty," said the Saint. "You should never leave a car unattended with its engine running." "But it was only for a second," stammered the driver. Famous last words. "But we'll soon put that right." The Saint's Jaguar XJS picked up speed and began to eat up the distance between itself and the Mercedes. At 90 miles per hour, the two cars careered along the Riviera seafront. The Mercedes was swinging violently from side to side, weaving about as if trying to shake itself free of its followers. "That fool! Look at the way he's treating a perfect engine!" shouted the Saint's companion. "If he knew how to drive, he would leave us standing." "Do I take that as an insult to the way I handle this car?" asked the Saint. No, you are a very good driver, but that Mercedes has a new invention. In any international race, it would be a winner." "Really? How very interesting," said the Saint softly. He was catching up with the stolen car now. Gradually he eased alongside and slowly forced the Mercedes to pull to one side. "Careful!" cried his passenger in anguish. "Please be careful. Do not harm the car." "Don't worry, old sport. I know what I'm doing." The youth in the Mercedes realized that he was losing the battle. He skidded to a halt, jumped out, and ran off. The Saint braked hard, and the XJS jolted to a standstill. "Right, let's get after him." "No, leave him. He is not important." "Oh well," the Saint shrugged. "If you insist." He was just about to get back into his car when he heard a violent knocking on the boot of the Mercedes. His companion ran to the back of the car and opened the boot. A beautiful brunette crawled out, painfully. Her eyes blazed as she advanced on the man. "What sort of driving do you call that, Mario?" "But my love," Mario parried her blows. "Don't my love me. I am black and blue all over from your terrible driving." "But it wasn't me driving, my beautiful one." "Have you gone mad? Of course you were driving." No. Someone took the car when I got out to buy cigarettes, and this man helped me give chase." "Oh," she gasped and stared at the two men. "I know it's none of my business," said the Saint gently. "But do you always travel in the boot of a car?" "We are not doing anything wrong," she said defiantly. "But Mario and I, we have to be careful how we meet. My name is Mariella Bienzi." "Now I recognize your face," said the Saint. "Your photographs do not do you justice. Suppose we drive to the nearest cafe and you can tell me what this is all about." Mario and Mariella got into the Mercedes and drove off. The Saint drove his Jaguar after them. He was half expecting them to speed away, but they slowed down and stopped at a small bar perched on the top of a cliff. The view over the Mediterranean was breathtaking. "We always stop here," Mariella told the Saint. "They know us and we can trust them." They ordered long cool drinks and strolled onto the terrace to admire the view. "Salute," said the Saint, holding up his glass. "You are Mario Lamberto, car designer. Your reputation is well known." "You have heard of me, then?" "I hear of everyone who is noteworthy, dear boy. I heard that you've been sacked from the Calvani racing team for some unmentionable crime. I must say I thought it odd at the time."
"That crime was to fall in love with me," burst in Mariella. "Of all the unfair, treacherous, loathsome things my guardian did, it makes me angry that this man controls all my money. I am a pauper if he says so."
"But you are rich, are you not?" asked the saint, puzzled.
"My mother and father were killed in an air crash. Signor Calvani is a distant relative. My father made him my guardian, and I cannot marry without his consent. And I cannot have my money until I marry. Mario and I love each other. When Calvani found out, he sacked Mario on some trumped-up charge."
"But you were his chief designer." "I was for many years. All his victorious cars have been my models. Calvani told me that there was no need for contracts between friends. Always I was promised a share of the profits, but I never got them. So I refused to give him my new invention without a contract, and he sacked me. Now I am out on the street. How can I marry Mariella with no job?" The saint put down his drink and stood up, gazing out over the Mediterranean. "You say you have a new engine in the Mercedes now?"
"Yes, it is revolutionary. According to my experiments, no car will beat it, providing it is driven by an expert. But of course I cannot enter it into any race now."
Mario hid his head in his hands. "How about Roger Knight giving it a try?" the saint asked.
"Roger Knight?"
echoed Mario.
"But he's the world champion."
"He's had a row with his team manager who promised him a new car and hasn't come up with one, so now he's out on a limb."
"But do you think he'd be interested?"
"He would if I asked him," said the saint. "Let me know where I can contact you. In the meantime, wouldn't it be much more comfortable for Mariella to sit in the front seat of my car rather than the boot of yours?" Mario looked doubtful. "Trust me, my friend," said the saint. "Leave it to me and you will be married soon. Mariella will get her fortune and you will get enough to start your own racing team." In less than an hour the saint was driving through the gates of Calvani's mansion and past the guard.
"See that man?"
Mariella nudged the saint's arm.
"He will be phoning my guardian to tell him I am with a man."
Disgraceful, isn't it? The drive was a long one up to the large house. When they arrived, Signor Calvani was waiting on the steps of his house.
"Mariella, what is this? Why are you not resting?"
"Because I was showing Mr. Templar the sights," she said defiantly. "This is Mr. Simon Templar."
The saint extended a languid hand and put on an aristocratic voice. "Nice to meet you, Signor Calvani. Came over for the racing. Got a new motor, jolly fast. Roger Knight's driving it. Says nothing will touch it." Calvani studied the saint for several minutes.
"Please come inside,"
he said. "Oh, I say, jolly nice of you and all that." He followed his host inside through a large hall with a marble floor out onto a sun lounge which overlooked a terraced garden.
"May I offer you some refreshment?"
"You got any whiskey, old chap?" Calvani poured him out a stiff one.
"Tell me about your car."
"Oh, very hush-hush. Got a secret engine. Moves along at a tremendous speed. Designed it myself. Had enormous offers for it, simply enormous. Don't need the money. Well, I might sell it for a beautiful brunette." He turned and winked at Mariella. Calvani took the saint's glass and filled it with an even larger whiskey. The saint took it and downed it with one gulp. "Beautiful girl. She your daughter?"
"No, Mr. Templar. I am her guardian."
"Lucky you. Wish I was her guardian, don't you know? Well, old thing." He took Mariella's hand and kissed it. "How about coming to watch the trials? Seeing Roger tonight? Must tell him about you."
"Perhaps you will permit me to come to watch."
Calvani escorted the saint to the door.
"I would bring Mariella, of course."
"Anything you say, squire. Expect you at the track tomorrow afternoon. Bye." The saint got into his car and drove off down the drive. No sooner had Calvani seen the saint down the drive than he jammed down several buttons on the intercom.
"Jake, Ross, Blake, follow that silly ass Englishman and stick with him."
3 heavyweight, thick-set men ran out of the lodge by the gate and jumped into a car. They drove through the gates and down the road a short distance and then parked in a side turning. The Saint noticed them as he drove by. "There you are, my fine friends. I thought I'd have company before long." He drove at a friendly pace back to the Plaza Hotel, parked in the front, gave his keys to the front porter, and went inside. The car behind drove into the car park and waited. The Saint ran out through the kitchens at the back of the hotel to Mario, who was waiting in the Mercedes. "Where are we going?" asked Mario. "To meet Roger, of course." The three men in the car park waited several hours until the telephone in their car buzzed. Calvani's voice shouted down the line.
"What are you doing?"
"Nothing, just waiting, sir."
"No sign of any development?"
"No, sir."
"Well, come back. We must make plans. I have work for you to do."
The following afternoon, the Saint and Roger Knight were at the track. Knight was at the wheel of the Mercedes. "You get all the gen from Mario last night?" asked the Saint.
"Yes, and we had a trial one this morning. Runs really sweet, fast as a cheetah, nothing'll touch us. I've been in hundreds of cars, Simon, but never one like this."
"Hello, hello, we've got visitors." Calvani and Mariella had driven up and were getting out of the car, but the Saint wasn't watching them. He had his eyes on a car that was stationary at the other end of the track. "I think you're going to be kidnapped," he told Roger.
"I say, steady on."
"It's okay. I've got it under control. When you finish the trial, come back here and we'll make a switch of the car and the driver."
"What is this all about?"
"Later, old chum, later." Mario's Mercedes raced off with Roger at the wheel. Shooting around the track, the car went at an unbelievable speed. "What did I tell you?" The Saint patted Calvani on the shoulder. "Some speedster, what?"
"You certainly seem to have a winner, Mr. Templar. Let's hope nothing happens to stop you winning with it."
"Oh, I say, don't let's be pessimistic."
"Many a slip, you know, Mr. Templar, as you English say."
Calvani took Mariella's arm and marched her away to the car. "Right then," said the Saint as Roger drew the Mercedes up beside him. "You wait here until you hear from me."
"But where are you going?"
"I'm going to meet the boys down there in my borrowed Mercedes."
"But will you be all right?"
"I don't think they'll bother me much." The Saint drove off at speed towards the waiting car. The three men had parked across the road as a block and signalled the Saint to stop. Instead, Simon put his foot on the accelerator and drove straight at them, scattering them in the road. Then he stopped, jammed on the brake, turned, tyre screeching, and came back at them again. This time he hit the car side on, and it plummeted over the side of the bank. By the time the men had recovered enough to reach for their guns, the Saint was far away once more. He raced back to Roger waiting at the track. "Okay so far," he said. "Now I'm going to pay a visit to Calvani. Want to come?"
"Not if there's going to be any rough stuff."
"I'll be as sweet as sugar, you'll see. But that man's got a bill to settle with Mario, and I'm going to see he pays it in full." The Saint drove Roger in the Mercedes up the drive. The man at the gate reported to Calvani, and he was at the door waiting with a slight frown on his face. The Saint got out. "You'd better send a relief party for your three men down the road. They got a bit tangled up with my other car. Mind if I come inside?" The Saint didn't wait for an answer, just pushed past inside the house. Mariella was waiting in the sun lounge. Calvani followed the Saint. "If you wanted my car so badly, why didn't you ask?" said the Saint gently to Calvani.
"You said you wouldn't sell it to anyone,"
Calvani snapped. "Ah, but remember what I did say."
"You mean Mariella?"
said Calvani, astonished. Mariella let out a cry.
"Simon, you wouldn't."
But before she could say any more, Simon turned on her, and from the look on his face, she knew she must keep silent. "You badly need to win this race, Calvani. In fact, you can't afford not to win. Hence the episode with your three henchmen. You can't bear to think of all those orders going elsewhere."
"It's true what you say. Name your price, and if you want Mariella, then she's yours."
"I want a letter giving your permission for Mariella to marry the designer of the car."
"That's you,"
interrupted Calvani. The saint didn't answer, but continued. And £100,000 for the design outright.
You drive a hard bargain,
muttered Calvani. I'll take the letter now, said the saint. Calvani went to the desk and hurriedly wrote the note.
Here, take Mariella with my blessing. Mariella, go with Mr. Templar.
Mariella, her face buried in a handkerchief, left the room, followed by the saint. Once outside the house and in the courtyard, she burst into laughter.
Oh dear, he will be furious when he finds out.
But by then it will be too late, and when Roger wins, you have Mario and your money, and Calvani has his car. Fair trade, wouldn't you say? She threw her arms round his neck and kissed him, and just for a moment the saint wished that the letter really did mean him.